Hello, my fellow CEOs. Welcome back. So nice to see you. And I would love to talk to you today about generosity. That is your strategy. And you might think, I'm a very generous person. That's probably one of the best, in my opinion. It's one of the greatest compliments I've ever received from someone. It was a neighbor and brought something over, and she stopped and looked at me and said, "You are one of the most generous people I have ever known." And I just could not be more touched by it. It almost brought tears to my eyes. And I just thought that was the nicest thing someone could say to me. And because she realized I was giving without expecting anything in return. And that's the key, in my opinion, of generosity, that you're giving, not expecting something back. Super, super important. And there's so many different ways that you can give. And I'm reading off my card, and this one is be generous with your God-given gifts, right? I'm sharing what I know, and part of it is my God-given gift. And my smile, God-given gifts, your smiles, your fortune, time, your gratitude, your love. There's so many ways that you can be generous, right? And I've talked about this before, and I know this is in a very specific training. I believe I did a live on it, and it just talked about sometimes patience, being generous with your patience, being generous with your understanding. And most of all, your most valuable thing is obviously your time. And a couple of the things that I want to talk about, I made some notes here, and just want to stress to you that as nice as it feels to give something, right, to that other person and to receive, you're actually getting so much more out of it. And I know I'm telling you things that you already know, but I really want to emphasize the power of generosity, because it truly goes back to what we talked about a couple strategies ago, which was attraction, right? When you are a giving person, you are going to attract very generous people into your life. And when you do that, it is very important to think about what it is that you're giving that person and make it appropriate for them, right? Somebody has everything. They don't want another thing. Like, I am not a big jewelry person. So my husband knows not to get me a lot of jewelry, because that is not how I accept. That's not my love language, right? You guys have probably heard of that. And so, of course, he's very generous in so many ways, but he knows that I feel his love most when he spends time with me or does an act of service, like doing the dishes or picking up a child or something like that. And so it's super important that you keep that in mind when you are being generous, because you want them to also feel the love of your generosity, right? And that comes before, when you think about what would they like, not necessarily what I would like. And that's the important thing. And it's also accepting generous things that are given to you. When somebody expresses their generosity, how are you accepting that? Are you, oh, you shouldn't have done that? Come on, we all know somebody that does that. No, no, I wish you hadn't done that. Just take it back, whatever. Try to be graceful and mindful of that person's. Don't deny them that opportunity to be generous to you, and just say thank you, right? And I say this because I've seen it more often than not, and people mean it from the heart. They're trying to be very kind by doing that, but really they're robbing the other person of the opportunity to share their generosity. And another aspect I'd like to talk to you about in this is, so would you want to be described? When you think of someone in your life as being generous, what are their traits? What are their qualities that you like about them? And how do they make you feel when they are generous? Excuse me. I just had lunch. And so I know someone in my life that I can't tell her that I like something of hers, because next thing I know, I'm owning one. And it comes from the heart, but I'm very careful now when I say, oh, I really like this, but I don't want it. It's not something I would want in my home, but I think it looks great in your home. And I specify the compliment. And so I try to be very specific in my compliment to her because I don't necessarily want it. I don't want to own one. I'm just complimenting her on how great it looks at her house. And so those are a couple of things that I wanted to touch base with you about today and generosity. And of course, I forgot to set my timer, so I'm not sure how far I have gone in terms of time. Is it a word? Is this something you like to? So don't forget, generosity is one of those things that it will come back to you. And I'm just going over my notes to see, make sure I did not forget anything that I wanted to tell you. And so I talked about being generous with your compliments. It doesn't always have to be money. I think a lot of people think about gifts, things, tangible things. That's not true. You can be generous with your love. You can be generous with your knowledge, generous with your compliments, generous with your patience, with your creativity. So many different things. You can say, you're so thoughtful, right? You can be generous with your compliments that way as well. You don't always have to say, oh, I like your shirt, or I like that. I'm so proud of you. That is expressing your love, right? And really touch on that you're not just giving from your abundance necessarily. You can be giving from things that you're lacking. And be generous with your encouraging words. You got this. You've done amazing things. And most of all, just make sure it is authentic. There's nothing worse than getting a compliment from someone. And I know somebody who does this too. And you know they're not being truthful. If you've put on 50 pounds and someone sees you and says, oh my gosh, you look so good. Have you been working out? I have to keep myself in check and not roll my eyes, because I know that that person is not being true. They're not being authentic. They're saying something that the other person knows is a lie. They know that they've gained the 50 pounds. Don't tell them something that is not true, or if you're not being authentic, everyone can read it, and that really makes you lose credibility and respect, etc. So please don't do that. I think the last thing I want to leave you with is a quote. I did just think of something else too, but the quote is by Rebecca Solnit, and it is, quote, every minute of every hour of every day, you are making the world. It's true. Just as you are making yourself, and you might as well do it with generosity and kindness and style. And so before I leave you, I want to touch on one other thing that just came to mind with generosity that I didn't put in my notes to discuss with you today. But we all know those people that they try to be generous, but you can always tell that it's not genuine, like I mentioned before, but this is a different level. They will be generous for a reason to get something in return, right? It's conditional. So if they think that they can get something from you, they will do something for you. And so I really caution you on that. Or what's another example? You go to somebody's house and they have a beautiful cabinet with all these good wines, but yet when they go to serve you the wine, and they go and get, and you can tell if you're a wine drinker, a much less expensive bottle of wine that they serve you. Think about whether you want to be that kind of a person and saving the best for yourself. And really, how does that make you feel? Because that other person can feel that. Even if they don't notice or know wine, they can notice that difference inside themselves. And so I encourage you, please, that if you're trying to skimp, Don't do it in that area. Don't do it in that generosity area, because that will come back to you tenfold and not in a good way. So I encourage you today to practice all the things that we have gone over. So when you're giving a gift, give it with love, give it with that good emotion, right? Give it with your generosity of truly from your heart. You can't wait to give that gift to someone because it's going to make you so happy. I know I love giving gifts. Everybody that knows me knows I love to give a gift. Excuse me. And so I encourage you to also look in your heart and see, maybe it's something homemade if you don't have a lot of money, but really make it to that person's personality, to their style, something that they would really enjoy. So thank you for watching. Liz Soroyce with 52 CEOs, and have a wonderful day. See you next time.